film. Yeah, films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those.
So we're going to talk about Spoor, which is really interesting, very long, but charming in some ways and stressful in others. It was recommended to us by Sarah Mueller of Cinespeak, which is a local organization here in Philadelphia that does screenings and also has a periodical that I write for every now and again, and all kinds of other things. It was amazing. And when she heard I liked eco-horror, she was like, check this out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it's on the list. And then when we were picking eco-horror, it went right onto it.
Nice. We did it. Champions.
Done. Okay. You want me to go now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So, Spoor from 2017 is about Janina Duszewsko. An elderly woman lives alone in the Klodzko Valley, where a series of mysterious crimes are committed. Duszewsko is convinced that she knows who or what is the murderer, but nobody believes her, and it's directed by Agnieszka Holland and Kasia Adamek, who's the collaborating director, and Agnieszka's daughter, which
Cool.
I thought was cute, especially because this film is incredibly feminist. It's like, I saw somewhere it dubbed as an eco-feminist film, and I was like, yeah. And the earth is feminine. Like a Mother Earth, that kind of thing. I was like, yeah, all the feminines in there. Femme presenting as it is. So that was fun. It was a little fun fact. I wanted to start this section by saying that I think we can all agree that Poison Ivy is not really a villain.
Yes.
Poison Ivy from the Batman world. She is an environmental activist. And in a world with a city like Gotham that's full of like creeps and larger than life characters that are intent on selfish, greedy, evil things, Poison Ivy is a hero. I mean, honestly, a lot of them are kind of sad. There's like ones that I feel really bad about, like, Mr. Freeze or whatever. That's just our failed healthcare system.
Yeah.
It's him, right? So, but Poison Ivy's not really a villain. So, and, Bane, our incarceration system right there. Like, but there's a lot of them. Can't get in. Crooked cops, dime a dozen. All right?
Yeah.
Mafia men, anarchists that aren't even really anarchists, whatever. That's my honest opinion. And this film is Poison Ivy to me.
Yeah, I agree. Eco-terrorism for the win.
Yeah, it is eco-terrorism where we are trying to save the environment in a radical and effective way.
Sometimes it's necessary, man. I mean, you don't gotta tell me twice.
Yeah, you don't sign up for riots. Let's go. This film, it's rare for me to be like, okay, murder is okay sometimes. But this film made me think that. So, as a vegetarian, as an animal lover, as someone who is like deep into eco horror and just like traumatized by what we're doing to the environment and how little time we have here, and absolutely frustrated at the people in power for being ignorant to it, and like making us feel guilty for having plastic bags when we have entire corporations that are shipping off their used plastic to other countries so they end up disposing of it and so we don't look bad. Like, anyway, all of those things makes me feel like Poison Ivy is very valid, and so is the character in this film that I'm going to tell you about. So this eco-noir, I will say, features a serial killer stalking the small town of Klodzko Valley and killing off local men. It's eco-feminist. I'm kidding. It's also not like misandry. Misandric. I don't know what the proper tense of that is, but it's not, there's no misandry. It's not like I hate men. There's good men in this film. That's what I'm trying to say. Bad men are being killed off. These men are far from innocent. They have committed many murders themselves. Those murders were of animals and local wildlife, but it's still murder, especially because they're poachers. They're doing it off season and excessively, and they're also misogynist, and they're holding the rural village hostage to their whims, and it's regardless of any laws. And there's something strange about this particular killer, in that you wonder, could it be an animal taking revenge on these evil men?
Yeah, and I agree with it is murder because of the fact that we share the genes of other creatures on this planet, which is what we talked about in Annihilation, is that we share the genetic Hox gene makeup of all the creatures on this planet. We are made up of all the things. So for us to have the audacity to be like, killing an animal in a really brutal and disgusting way, that's not murder. It's like, nah, it still is, though. It still is. Just, you don't know what's inside their brains.
Yeah.
You assume you know. Everyone's...
It's like...
What makes me want to yell, but I'm not going to.
It's one of, like, the like, there, you can't really tell if someone's going to be a serial killer, you know? But there's, like, those very few things that a lot of them have in common, and oftentimes it's, like, killing animals at a young age. And I'm like, why do we think that there's an age limit to that being a red flag?
Yeah.
because like, I get, like, some of them that, like, will hunt deer or whatever because there's, like, overpopulation, or they're trying, like, there's some point to that there's control and there's reason for it. Or if you're treating it like indigenous peoples, where you're using every piece of it and you're paying respect to it, you're saying thank you, also totally okay. But there's, like, these specific ones, and a lot of, like, just poachers who are doing it for kicks, or just doing it to feel some kind of power. And that's a red flag. That is very scary to me. And I don't know why we think that it's okay to just be like, they're older now, so it's not... Like, I would feel uncomfortable. I'd be like, if you can kill this pig who can feel pain and has exhibited that it does understand it and is smarter than dogs, then how can I be sure you can't kill me? Like, I do not feel safe around you.
It's a very... I think it ties into, like, that whole wanting to have power over something else, and that a lot of the most deplorable acts that humans commit stem from that.
Mm-hmm.
That it all correlates, and I agree with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's like the people who, like, kill bears, and you're like, for why? Like, what are they do nothing. You're not going to eat it. It's just because you want to say you killed a grizzly bear. Like, big whoop. It's gross. People kill lions. Like, why? Anyway, it's so great. And, like, they take pictures, like, the trophies. I can't. I feel like in Ace Ventura, the first one?
Yes.
The one where he gets in the room and it's full of it, and you're just like,
yes.
And
it's like a reasonable response. It's a reasonable response.
Because the first one's very transphobic. We're not going to talk about that one. But the second one, Call of the Wild or whatever, Nature Calls, that's a good one. And that one has all the animals and the little trash baby. And he's holding on to it and it falls. I was like, I'd also go to a monastery. Anyway, come back from my tangent. There's a murderer on the loose. And this film is adapted from Olga Tokarczuk's. I'm really sorry. Tokarczuk's novel, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, which is now being added to my ever-growing eco-horror to-read list on Goodreads. It is very large right now. Every time I keep getting advertised, they're like, top 10 eco-horror books. I was like, all of them. Put them in there. I'm ready.
Yeah.
1 second. I want to see something.
That's his own form of activism, too, and I'll get to that in my section. But, like, that's important, and it's good that you do that.
Thank you. The film's Polish title is Poachers, which refers to the traditional ritual ending of a group hunting expedition. It's a count of the slaughtered animals. So it's like, we finished the thing, and it's like, men get slaughtered in this movie, and we're kind of counting them up. While Spoor derived from Dutch, it means the track or scent of an animal, and both of them work for what's going on. Although I kind of like the poachers, because that's like one of those things where it's like words in other languages that we don't have a word for. This film follows Duszeko, a woman who lives in a quaint little area of Poland with her dogs, and she is upset by these neighbors who hunt constantly. Like, it's nonstop. They're always doing it. And there's also like a fox farm, and I don't know what you do with foxes, but they're like crying. Like, she passes it like every day and they're crying. So that doesn't put it into perspective how messed up this place is. The throughout the film, we get these like title cards for each season, which shows like this little representation of which animals are up on the chopping block. But it's made very clear that the hunters don't actually care what's on what's allowed. They're just killing whatever's around, and a lot. It's so excessive. It's really gross. Like, that's not how that works. Because that's just not how that works.
It's for sport, not for necessity. That's the problem inherently.
Exactly. Geez, where am I? Okay. We see many of the wildlife that Poland has to offer in this film, from boars, deer, foxes, like I said. And we also learn about special insects that live there, and only there, meaning that this plot of land should be protected. It should be deemed a sanctuary so that specific type of insect can spawn and create more of them, because they're at risk because they don't exist anywhere else. And I found myself wondering if there were any game wardens around to enforce the laws, but this really seemed like a lawless land of obscene animal murder. So if there is a game warden in Poland, I don't think the one that was in this town cared, which is sad. In our heroine, I was reminded of Raga from The Seer and the Unseen, that we covered. We talked to the director of, and Saradosa. It's a new film at Sundance. And Raga was an environmental advocate who spoke for the hidden people of Iceland. And Duszejko was speaking for the animals of Poland. So similar in that way. And when they were injured or died, you could see the emotional toll it took on her, that it seemed like she died with them every single time. And throughout the film, we get to know Duszejko and her little town. We meet the hunters, and we learn that abuse doesn't stop at the animals, and that justice isn't available for anyone on two legs or four, because they're abusive to the women in the town, and there's clearly manipulation and who controls the police and all of those things, and like who's really protecting who. And it's also a small town, so everyone kind of knows each other, and everyone seems to hate her, but she does find comfort in her misfit band of friends, including a neighbor who has a dark past and a growing affection for her, a struggling young shopkeeper who's in a sticky situation, and a techie with a hidden disability who is full of charm, and also a quirky, equally nature-obsessed entomologist. And they become her tribe, pretty much, like, throughout the thing. So, like I said, only one of those is a fellow lady. So it's not, like, all men, but it's most of the men in this town. So she's like, half of the story is like her developing these relationships and kind of finding a tribe, finding people who care about things like she does, or appreciating nature in the way that she does. And the other half is this murder mystery, because slowly these evil hunters are conveniently dropping like flies. And Duszejko offers a reasonable explanation for this, saying that the animals are having their revenge. Right? So she saw that there were deer hoof prints at one of the scenes of one of the deaths. There was pheromones from that special beetle found on another victim. Right? And the very same men who are abusing and attacking the natural world were the ones being attacked. So she's like, this is nature coming back. Like, why aren't you listening? And everyone's like, whatever. She's like dismissed. And the hunters just continue to be killed off, and also to continue to kill. She even informs the detective of events that she found online in which bees strategically attacked someone, and other instances of animals being put on trial for murder, which, if we have time, I will tell you some of those cases. At some point, like, when she's telling those and she's like stressed out, and you really do start to care for her, and she's been through a lot, you might even believe her, because, I mean, obviously the deer aren't killing, but to some degree, it's like, have they evolved? Is there something going on? But then it becomes really troubling when we realize that Dusheko may have been the last person to see each of these men alive, and she also happens to have new knowledge of the effects of certain pheromones from her friendship with the friendly entomologist, and she has a motive in the form of her missing and presumed dead puppies that we saw at the beginning and went missing, and we were all pretty sure were murdered by the hunters. At one point, she even asks about it, and they say if they didn't have a collar on, they can legally be shot.
That's insane. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gross. That's like you can say anything about hunters that you want, but that's like a limit, right? Like that's a threshold that a lot of people wouldn't want to cross, right? That's like someone's pets, like a dog. Like that's people aren't on board with dogs being murdered. That's gotta be the biggest. That's a big red flag. I don't. Anyway, this town and the hunters have such little respect for not only animals but also other humans, and there's a disgusting misogynistic element that plays into making Dusheko seem more like an anti-hero than an outright villain. She is caring and unassuming, and each of these hunters makes the grave mistake of not taking her seriously, going so far as to manhandle her in some scenes, aggressively, because she's like freaking out at them, and they're just like, letting her go. So in an LA Times article called Spoor Review, Agnieszka Holland Unleashes an Eco-Feminist Heroine by Katie Walsh, the writer explains the reverent feminism and unique perspective in an older female heroine single-handedly fighting the patriarchy. And she says, however, in respect due, this is the kind of film that could never have been made by men. Korzik and Holland give us an older female heroine driven by mysticism, astrology, legend, and her primal personal connection to plants and animals, ancient feminine ways of knowing that are scoffed at by men. She fights back against this bloodthirsty, exploitative patriarchy, which often seems futile, but as bodies pile up mysteriously, surrounded by insects and animal tracks, it seems like nature is on her side. And I completely agree with that, because there's so much about it that is, it really kind of felt like she was very, like you're saying, like she was seen as crazy and scoffed at, but there is a strength in the fact that she is this older woman who completely exists on her own, and she takes care of everything she lives in her little house, and she's got a garden, and she understands nature, and she could exist on her own, and that's super strength right there, and an empowered existence, versus these flimsy men who get their power off of hurting others. And I think it was kind of beautiful. And I also found some interesting notes about the director and Olga Tokarczuk, the author of the novel, about the reception in their country. And so on NPR, titled Polish Thriller Spoor is a Pulpy Murder Story and a Utopian Fable by John Powers, they explain, now 72, Holland left Poland 40 years ago after her films were harshly censored by the Communist Party, beginning a remarkable career in the West that includes everything from Holocaust films to Henry James adaptations to episodes of The Wire. And despite her Nobel, she got a Nobel Prize, or Nobel, some kind of award for her writing. Tokarczuk is hugely controversial in her home country for speaking out against the current Polish government run by the nativist, overtly authoritarian law and justice party. And that only strengthens the story about one woman against a monumental patriarchal force of power. Again, making her the hero. So it's she is doing it. And I think the fact that you don't really suspect her through the majority of the film. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a part of you is this is very convenient. But she is so unassuming. And there's a part where she's even going to turn herself in for a different crime to like save a friend, and they just dismiss her. They're like, no. Like, we know that's not what you would do. And then at some point it's just like so obvious because she's so overwhelmed, and like it's clearly indoctrinated into their community because they have the kids participating and valuing the murder of the animals, and they're like putting on a play where they're gonna be the animals that are
the
murdered.
most horrific song I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
I was like, are we in a cult right now? Like, how do they not see that this is weird?
Right, like those are the red flags.
Vibes.
And they're like, the parents are like so proud, and it's to the point where even like the religion is deep into it, because the priest is like, it's a sin, or it was like, it's wrong for you to care about animals this much, like care about animals more than humans or equal to humans, because animals don't have souls, which is incorrect. But it's like this whole thing. I was like, have you ever seen All Dogs Go to Heaven?
You don't know we have souls. You know what I mean? It's just like
what even is a soul?
You don't even know what a soul is. Animals can have it. Jesus Christ. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So there's like so many levels to this very toxic town, and that it goes so deep to the point where like the only way to fight is to do this. And she can do it because people don't take her seriously. So she got away with it for a lot. And then, she goes off and has her own little utopia away from people with people that she loves. And I was like, this is the best ending.
Yeah.
Best ending to any of these films we've ever had.
Yeah, I appreciated too the fact that she was older, because that's something that's like something I hear a lot, which is just so incorrect. I think it's more like where it's like the older you get, the more conservative. I was like, no, the older I get, the more extremely radical I become, and I just feel like she is a more accurate representation of what everyone should be turning into, instead of like becoming more because it's like, no, it's actually like you learn more about the world, or you actively choose not to, and then you just double down in your things.
It's just we're only seeing these ones,
Yeah, so
but we forget about the free love movement and all of the like.
Yeah, like there's older people who do that, and then they hide them so that you don't think that that's what actually happens. It's just
and we're forgetting Jane Fonda exists. Like,
yeah.
They're activists. They've been activists forever, and they were out there. It's not just like red, Trump loving old people. We're all out there.
Yeah.
So I agree, and it is nice to have her be so powerful in the end too.
Yeah,
like when she dons her like wolf costume, I was like, okay, this is like the second time someone wore a wolf costume to murder, and it was good.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's something like powerful about that too, in a feminist sense, in that like go ahead and underestimate. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, you make that mistake once.
How quick that was an incorrect assessment, because ultimately that works to our advantage.
Mm-hmm. Also, I did love that when she goes to the costume party, she was the wolf and he was Little Red Riding Hood. That was super cute.
Their whole dynamic was really sweet, and I just really loved them as like
great.
friends.
And I love that like it was like the big reveal. So like her love interest is this old man, and his son is the detective, and so she like is talking to the detective, and he like has this big reveal to be like, you shouldn't trust my father, like you don't really know him. And she's like, why? And he's like says that he was arrested for terrorism, but it was because he was like gonna bomb this facility because they wouldn't take in his wife who was dying of an illness. Like it was because of the failed healthcare system. Again, he's just Mr. But it was I was just like it was funny to me because he says that to her like, oh, now you can't trust him, like he was a terrorist, and she's like, that's not like, she just looks like
the thing he needed to do.
To her she was like, wow, he's an ally. Like, like I trust him. And then it turns out like he was a really great ally to have because he knows how to fight back against the oppressing powers that be and help her escape. So it turned out being really good. But I just love that there was like these two activists, and they're old, and they're just like, we've been fighting this whole time. We're not going to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about the historical context of the fact that like World War II deeply impacted Poland and how they kind of intersected that history, I thought that was also really interesting.
Yeah.
Because at first when I saw like the bunker, I was like, why does he have that? And I was like, oh, yep.
Oh, right.
Yep. Yeah, that lots of houses have those because of the times that the World War II, that makes sense.
That's why my family came here. So they left Poland to come here because of that. So, all right.